Hello everybody and welcome back. So now that we can actually display messages inside of our list view, I think the next logical step for us is to actually add a medium into our chat page so that we can actually send messages as well. And I'll bet there is some functionality that's not kind of included in the list view for now. For example, we don't automatically scroll to the bottom of the list view when we open the chat to see the latest messages, but we'll add that later on. And the first thing that we need to do is that we need to get out of the cycle of actually manually adding things to Firestore to actually show data, and we need to add a form which will allow us to actually publish new messages for a specific chat to Firestore. So with that said, let's get into it and let's see how we're going to be doing this. So I'm going to close down my message bubbles and custom list view tiles file. I'll make sure that my chat_page.dart file is open. I'll also close down this terminal window that I had, and with this what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to my build UI function and I'm going to go to where I'm rendering my messages list view, and then underneath of that I'm going to say that I'm going to render a new function, and that is going to be send message form, and then I'll add the parentheses to invoke it. With this I'm going to go down and I'm going to create a new function within the class, obviously, and I'm going to call that function the same thing that we had named our function in the widget tree, which is send message form. And then I'm going to add the parentheses and open the function definition. So what do I mean by this message form? Well, this message form is going to be a widget that is going to constitute all of this UI that we see at the bottom of our screen. So that's this text field for us to enter our message, then this button to send the message, and then this kind of circular button to actually upload an image message. So that's what the send message widget is going to encapsulate. I'm going to say that this function is going to return a container, and then this container is going to have a height. The height is going to be the device's height, and I'll multiply that with 0.06. With this, what I'll do is that I'll do the decoration attribute, and I'll say that it's going to be of type box decoration, and then I'm going to say that it's going to have color, and the color is going to be color.from, and I'll do red, green, blue, and opacity, and then I'll say that it's going to be 30, 29, 37, and 1.0. With this, I'll add a comma, do Alt-Shift-F just to reformat the code, and then move on to the next property, which is going to be our border radius for our box decoration. And the border radius is going to be border radius, and then from there it's going to be .circular, and then I'll put in 100 pixels. With this, we move on to the margin for our actual container. So the margin is going to be similar to padding, except padding is applied to the outside of the container, while margin is applied to the content that exists within the container. So that's what a margin is. And I'm going to use the same concept, which is edge insets and then dot symmetric. So apply the same, you could say margin in this case, on the horizontal and vertical axes as I specify. And then I'm going to say that the horizontal one is going to be the device's width, and then that'll be multiplied by 0.04. And then the vertical is going to be the device's height, and then I'll multiply that with 0.03. With this, I'll add a comma here as well, and do a comma inside of the parentheses, and do and do Alt-Shift-F command, save. With the margin defined, the next thing that I'm going to do is that I'll define the child, and the child is going to be a form widget. The form widget, as we know, requires us to give it a key so that the state for this form can be maintained and we can perform some operations on them. So the key, let's just go to the top of the class and let's see if we created that key. And as we know that we actually created a key called the message form state, so I'll copy that, and it's being initialized as well in an init state, so we know it's not going to be null, and I'm going to set that to be the key for our form. With this, I'm going to define the child for my form, and the child is going to be a row widget, because our form is going to have 3 distinct widgets inside of it: the text field plus the button to send the message, as well as the actual button to actually upload an image message. With this, the first thing that I'm going to do is that I'll define the main axis size, and the main axis size is going to be main axis size and then dot maximum. Main axis size, and it's not doing it for some reason. Main axis size dot max. With this, I'll define the cross axis or main axis alignment. Let's just go in and define order. So main axis alignment, that'll be main axis alignment. And then I'll do, for now, let's just do space evenly. I think space evenly should work well. And then with this, I'll also define the cross axis alignment, which will be cross axis alignment dot center. and then what I'm going to do is that I'll add the children's list. And what after this is that I'm going to go and see what the error is, and I believe that's because we didn't add a parentheses. So do that, do Alt-Shift-F, add another comma here, Alt-Shift-F, command, save, and that's pretty much all we had to do. So now inside of our children's list, we need to add 3 distinct things. As I mentioned, the text field, the message to send, the button to send the message, as well as a button to send an image message. So what I'll do is that for now, I'll create the first widget, which is going to be our message text field. And then I'm going to add the parentheses. Then I'm going to go down and I'm going to create the actual function, which will be rendering our message text field. And I am going to open it up. I'm going to say that it's going to return a sized box. And a size box is just a container with a defined size. And then what I'm going to say that it's going to infer its height, so I don't define the height, but I'll say that it's going to take the width, that is the device's width, and multiply that by 0.65. All of these sizings that you've been seeing throughout the course are just things that I've kind of, when I was developing the app, tried to test with, and whatever values that worked for me were how I deduced what values to use. So it's just a medium of like trial and error. You try something, you see if it works, and if it does, then you continue with it. If it doesn't, then you refine upon that. And then I'm going to say that I'm going to return a custom text form field. So remember, this was something that we had created in previous videos, a custom widget, which allows us to have a text form field, and we can define some properties on it. So for the onSaved function, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say that our field is going to give us a value. And then what we're going to do is that we are going to save that value inside of our provider. So I'm going to go to my chats page or chat page provider, and I'm going to go and make sure that there's a property called message on my actual chat page provider, as it is here. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to make sure that I also have a setter method for my actual message variable as well, because I just have a getter for now, and then this variable is a private variable denoted by this underscore. For us to access it outside of the scope of this class, we need to define a setter method for it as well. So I'll say that I'm going to create a setter method. I'll call it void set, and I'll call this message, and then I'll say that it's going to take in a string value, and I'll set the underscore message to be underscore value. And that's pretty much all we're going to do. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to say that inside of here, when onSaved is called, I want to take the actual page provider. I believe it's the page provider, so let's just type it in. Yes, which is of type chat page provider. I need you to access the message, and you need to set that to be the value that gets passed. And that's pretty much all we had to do. With this, I'll also define the regex, and the regex is just going to make sure that we don't put anything illegal inside of our actual text. So like no dot spaces, things like that, dollar signs, things like that. Then for obscure text, I'm going to set that property to false because we don't need to obscure the message that we're giving. And then finally, for the hint text, I'm going to say that we're going to say type a message. With this, I'll do command save, and let's just see that can we see our text field. So as you can see, we can see it. So with this, what I'll do is that I'll end this video here, and I'll see you guys in the next video, where we'll just continue developing this bottom widget that we're creating, which is going to allow us to send messages. So with that, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.